What do you think about the effectiveness of the divestment boycott strategy? I think we have to mobilize more people in the streets, more than emails. I think we need militant, direct action. I think, how do we get more people involved in taking up this issue? So there's probably 15 questions in that vein. So I think, why don't we speak to that?
I touched a little bit on that at the beginning in my remarks. I would like to talk about boycott, divestment, sanctions, because I think it's an important movement for two reasons. One, primarily, because it's the call from Palestinian civil society. And actually, I think we need to always check ourselves when talking about Israel and Palestine, because, and not to criticize anybody in this room, but this often happens. We end up talking about the Jewish voices who are against what's happening. We end up talking about those Jewish groups and those Jewish individuals or Israeli individuals who are trying to break the silence in Israel. But we need to remember, even while we're doing that and asserting their voices, we also have to pay attention to the Palestinian voices. And to that extent, my comment's going to relate back a little bit to the last question in a way, in that, but the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement is calling for, and what it's based on, is a rejection of the peace paradigm. The peace paradigm is a failure. The experience of peace for Palestinians is more occupation and oppression. And that needs to be understood from the bottom, meaning from the grassroots, the reality on the ground, to the top, which is the halls of power, if we want to think of it in this way. We need to conceive of this situation, I think, as a situation, first and foremost, of oppression. And when we want to end oppression, we don't ask for peace, we seek and demand and work for ending oppression. We did not seek peace with the apartheid government, we sought to end the apartheid government. So first, BDS is important because it brings forward the Palestinian voice and the Palestinian position of civil society, of intellectuals, of the grassroots. But then secondly, what it does is it enables us in this country and around the world to change the debate. It's not a debate of who wants peace more. It's a question of who is oppressing and who is the oppressed, and how do we side with the oppressed to overcome that.
I also think that in this country, the voters in this country also have to believe in themselves. And that means that we look at what has happened in other parts of the world, from Bolivia and Ecuador, and Venezuela and Haiti, and understand that through the power of the vote, we really can change the policy that represents us. But we are not going to be able to do the same thing and vote the same way and vote for the same political parties and expect that we're going to get a different result.
Talking about what can be done to bring about peace there at this particular juncture, I have two suggestions. One is the Obama people are running a public opinion poll right now on the web. And it's called change.org. And it's open, change.gov. I thought they were running the government here. Okay, change.gov. And there are a lot of questions on there. One of them deals with what this government, this incoming government, should do to bring about peace in the Middle East. It is not the number one question in the poll. The poll, I understand, is open for another 2 days until the 15th of January. So go to it and tell them what you want them to do. And by the way, I talked about the need to make international law real. One way you do that is to bring the criminals to justice. And it may surprise you to note that the number one question in the poll, to which over 100,000 people have replied so far, is the question, are you going to do something about prosecuting Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld?
Well, I think that the actions announced by World Can't Wait during the announcements were very important, and I think that the general orientation of the slogans of tonight, stop the Israeli massacre in Gaza now, and condemn the role of the United States in these war crimes are very important to not, downplay or soft pedal. And then as we engage in this struggle, we will obviously, have exchanges over the fundamental nature of the problem. But I think one of the things that we are confronting, and we will have to confront with determination and passion and commitment and understanding, is that right now, Israel is very critical to this whole, as I said in my presentation, this whole so-called war on terror. There's one country in the Middle East right now, unfortunately, where there is a social base of support. Compare Egypt, for example, another U.S. ally complicit with U.S. crimes in the region. That government is very isolated and very shaky. And the United States right now has made an assessment that A, they need to carry through on this war on terror. We see no indication from Barack Obama that he is about doing anything but adjusting that to carry it out more effectively. And we have to confront that right now, Israel is the only reliable attack dog in the region, from the understanding of the people who run this country. Life would be simpler, I think, if it was simply a case of, the Israel lobby, which is very powerful. But I encourage people to look at the coverage in Revolution newspaper to understand the relationship between the attack dog and the master in the Middle East. And that does put a lot of responsibility on us. Let's face it, here in this country that is responsible, $3 billion a year of military and other aid to Israel. We have to take responsibility, being here in this country, to take a strong stand along the lines of the slogans identified for this evening's event.
Tonight has been a call to action. Nothing has changed in this world or in this country without very determined resistance. There was far too little of it with the Bush regime. Believing that somebody is going to save you from doing the things that you have to do to bring a stop to this grave injustices that this system represents is an illusion, and it's a dangerous one, especially when living in a country like this. So I do want to encourage you to find many different ways to resist, but you do have to resist